Hi BookTube. I was off today and I am off tomorrow as well. Um and I am actually turning them off this weekend as well, which is kinda nice. And like I said, my mom has requested I not go into work, not to volunteer to go in because, she doesn't want to get sick and everything. She's hoping to go see my sister and help her take care of her newborn daughter. So, but anyway, so first of all, I finally saw Hamilton. My mom surprisingly decided to go ahead and get Disney Plus, at least for this month, since I guess it's free for a month, and then you can decide if you want to keep it or not. And what my mom suggested is that maybe if I wanted us to keep it, maybe I can pay for that, and I think I might do that, because Disney Plus is not just for kids; it is full of stuff for adults too, and most of the stuff, and a lot of the kids stuff is stuff that a lot of us adults grew up watching. And I think some of the classic stuff on the classic Disney, like Steamboat Willie, which was the very first animated feature I think that was ever made, starring Mickey Mouse. I think that one's on there too. And like Disney is a company that which I think people take issue with, that Disney owns everything. I mean, now they own Marvel, and I think people are still a little wary of that, because then you have to be very family. You have to kind of be careful because it has the Disney name on it, so you be a little careful about the adult content. In fact, I think Disney tried to buy Fox, which owns DC. I think it's Fox, which owns like the DC Comics, or maybe they tried to buy Warner Brothers with me. I don't know, something to do with DC. And I think people were worried about that they would get it, because DC is a lot of their comics are a lot darker and edgier than Marvel. But as I tell Terry, Marvel does get pretty dark, and it does get dark. Maybe not as edgy as the DC comics, but it does get pretty dark. I mean, a lot of people died in a recent Marvel movie, so I think it's a little, so I think it's kind of it's a little unfair, just like people comparing Star Trek versus Star Wars. Like, you're either a Trekkie or whatever the Star Wars fans are called. I personally like both. But yeah, we finally watched it, and I already knew a lot of music because I was just watching Jennifer Brooks' video where she talked about the historical inaccuracies, which there aren't a lot. She was saying how does a pretty good job and is pretty accurate, but because it's a 2-hour show, they had to condense. Lin-Manuel Miranda did have to condense some things, so a lot of stuff was taken out, and they couldn't have they couldn't have like a cast of hundreds of characters. So, one of the things I remember saying is, which I literally just watched the video, so of course I remember. One of the things that she mentions in that video is that the whole Reynolds people calling out Hamilton for the whole Mariah Reynolds situation. It was not Jefferson, Madison, or Burr who called him out on that. They weren't even involved in that. I think one of the people she said was actually historically involved in that was Monroe, and then a couple other of the founding fathers. And and there's still a debate about historians are kind of divided with the whole was he having was there a bit of a love triangle between Hamilton, Eliza, and Angelica? There's debate about if that really happened, and some people think it did, and some people I guess think it's not really anything, that just people interpreting it as such. And then there was one other thing. I can't remember what the other thing she mentioned, but I was so I was smiling the whole time, and I started singing the songs. I didn't sing everything, but I quietly sang a lot of the songs, and I know that my dad was a little apprehensive. He wasn't sure if he was gonna like it or not, but he admitted that he actually really liked it. But so that was fun to watch, and like I said, I think I might end up deciding that to keep volunteering to pay for Disney Plus so we can keep it, because there's a lot of good stuff on there. I mean, I might look up on the internet is would people say that it's worth it, kind of thing, just to determine if I'm gonna. But now let's get to the reading. So first of all, I decided to focus on these two books because I know that they're quick reads and I will get through them quickly. And I was actually going to read, when I was debating if I was going to do the Myth Taker-a-thon, I was going to read this because one of the prompts was for reading a foil cover, and I think this is what is considered foiling, what's on this cover. So I wasn't going to read it for that, but I ended up not doing the Myth Taker readathon, but I might do it next year, just to, like, I think there were too many books I wanted to read, and I couldn't narrow it down to books that fit the path, and I had just too much time to think about it. So, but anyway, I'm reading it now. I decided to go ahead and read it now, get it read, because it's it won't take me super long to read it. And then I've had this one for a while. This third one still has not come out yet because, with this whole pandemic and everything, a lot of authors are deciding to put their books on hold before they send them out into the world because, although now things are starting to get better and people are starting to realize, with this is just going to be like the flu, and that people, if you're going to get it, you're going to get it. But so people might start putting their, the authors might start sending their books out there again, because now people are able to go to the store. People are able to go to stores as long as they wear their mask and make sure they have hand sanitizer and wash their hands frequently. I mean, I think that's the best you can do, is just try to be be as careful as possible. I mean, there might be certain, I might, for instance, have to wear a mask for several years going to work, which is going to really suck, but I got to do it. It's, if I want to keep healthy and not get anyone in my family sick, then I'm going to have to do that. And it may not be fun, but. So, I don't know if Hobbucks is going to come out this year or not, but that's what the third book is called. And this is the second one, Wondersmith. And I'm getting, obviously it's probably going to take place after the events of the first book. And we're going to deal with the aftermath of the reveal at the end of the first book. And from what I read, Morgan's going to have a pretty tough time, especially after what is found out about her at the end of the first book. But I really enjoyed the first book. I had such a fun time with it. I kind of got, like a lot of people said it reminded them of Harry Potter. It gave them Harry Potter feels, and yeah, it did. But I think it reminds me more of Alice in Wonderland with the whimsy and this magical world where things don't always make sense. But it's how it's like a world that nothing's supposed to make any sense. I mean, it's not as illogical as Wonderland, this world. I mean, there is more logic to this world than Wonderland, that's for sure. But it still kind of gave me Wonderland vibes. So I figure this is a middle grade book, so it's a chunker of a book, but I feel like I can get so good done. I mean, before I started to get before all the things that made me roll my eyes when I was reading the Keeper of the Lost City series, before that started, those things started to really bother me a lot more in that series. I could get through those books really quickly. So, and this is the same kind of thing. They're both middle grade, so I feel like I'm going to get through this. This is not what I'm going to get through really quickly, unless it does something that's going to really annoy me. I'm focusing on those two. With this one, obviously I haven't started this one, but with this one, Alice is trying to go about her life and be as normal as possible, but the hinterland is coming back into her life and trying to pull her back into their world, into the hinterland world, and she's, starting to really struggle with her dual identities, to, like, her loyalty to her mom, her adopted mother, and, wanting to be normal, desperately wanting to be normal, but then the pull of the hinterland and the power and, and being the connection to her story. Wow, now, and the last chapter I read ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, I feel like, so I kind of can guess how her mom's going to react to that, and how she's going to have very mixed feelings about that. Alice herself is, gonna have mixed feelings, but I think her mom is gonna have her own opinions too on that matter. What the cliffhanger at the end of the chapter I just read. I'm also kind of reading David Copperfield on and off. I almost actually bought A Tale of Two Cities in this kind of edition, but my mom, because I actually ordered 3 books from Thrift Books. So my mom was like, she had offered because they had some errands to run. They had to run up to Walmart. So they were like, okay, you want to go to Books A Million? But she told me, since I already ordered some books, that just get 1 book. So, although I still ended up getting 3 books, but it's not because the other 2 books are actually books for my nephews. And they're like learning type books. So, but one of the book I almost bought was A Tale of Two Cities in this kind of edition. But I just read the chapter on where David is reunited with little Emily, the girl he had a crush on, who was his little playmate when he was a kid, and she's engaged to this guy. And he, he runs into Steerforth, and they get to, they hang out together. And then he also gets his adopted grandmother gets him a job as a proctor, which I think is like a lawyer, or kind of in the law type vein. But he just applied for that job. He just went to get that job. And that's as far as I read. I'm going through this slowly. I should read some today, but it's it's a slower book. And like I said, I'll get through the North Country faster than this one. So those are the books I'm currently working on. I've kind of taken a break from this one, but I did get as far as she finally ends up. Our main character Vic ends up in Charlie Manx's house, and he almost catches her, but she manages to escape. And her dad left to go live with his girlfriend, so her mom's kind of on her own, taking care of her. Although that was revealed right before she ended up at Charlie's, because her and her mom got into this big fight about it, and because her mom accused her of having sex with her boyfriend. And which is not what happened. She actually she literally slept with him, not actually having physical sex, but they slept on the same bed and they spooned a little bit. But she ends up taking, and then so she ends up running away and ends up at Charlie's house and loses her bike. She ends up leaving behind her Raleigh bike. And so she's now, and then she ends up getting rescued by this guy, Louis Commodi. She ends up being rescued by him, and then there's this whole, they go to this gas station, and Charlie follows her, and there's this big, some of the men at the gas station decide to confront Charlie to defend her and everything, but that does not go too well for those guys. And so years later, as we skip ahead a few years to when Vic is an adult, and she and Louis are still together, and she ended up having sex with him as a kind of a thank you for saving her life. So she gets pregnant with his child, which their child is, they call the child Bruce Wayne. And I remember that the first time I read this book, and I heard that just made me giggle, But and now she's starting to get calls from the kids from Christmasland, because of course their dad, Charlie Manx, is in a coma, and his right hand man, Ding Bingley, I think his name is. Is it in here? It doesn't say on the back. I can't remember his name. I think it's Bing. Bing. His first name is Bing. I don't. What is this? Oh, wait. Okay. Here. Bing Partridge. Bing Partridge. That's the thing. I always forget his name. I always think Bing is like his last name or something. But Bing Partridge is now in his 50s, and he's still in his mind. Him and Charlie were doing the right thing. They were saving these kids, and he was teaching these mothers a lesson on how to treat their kids, and he was in his twisted mind. He thinks he was doing the right thing, and that he's gonna go to heaven because he was helping these kids. Now, if you believe in heaven and hell, he's probably not gonna go to heaven. He's probably gonna go down there. And I almost feel sorry for the guy, but then I remember what he did to those women. It's like, and I think he also did it to a father. It's like, now it's like, never mind, I don't feel bad for him at all. I wish that I had it. Oh, I'm gonna have to tape this. I'm gonna have to tape this part too. I cannot believe I get this waterlogged. Although it shows it's well read, even though I haven't read a lot of it. But anyway. So, and we're basically at the point where Vic is getting all these weird calls from the kids from Chris's land saying they miss Charlie and they want to come back, and she lied about about Charlie, and her only way to get away from those calls is if she's painting. So she first is painting this motorcycle for Lewis, and then she decides to create I think it's a graphic. I don't know if it's a picture book or a graphic novel called Search Engine. I think it might be a picture book. Yeah, I think it's a picture book that she's working on, and it's her only way to escape the phone calls, because as long as she's doing that, they don't call her, they don't bother her. But anyway, so yeah, I just love this, and it just so much reminds me of his dad, Joe Hill, does with his writing and stuff. Which I have another thing to say, which I will. There's something else I gotta say about Stephen King in a minute, but before I do that, I'm also reading, as you guys know, David McCullough's his bio on John Adams. And this was, and like I said, it was a surprise that my mom got Disney Plus. So it was a near coincidence that I was reading this, and then she decided to get. I mean, although she might have been partly thinking about how I kind of expressed that I was getting back into being interested in this time period in history. But I still haven't got very far because I haven't read it in a couple days. But I have not watched Turn in a couple days. I need to watch it because I don't want it to be another situation where I forget about it and decide, oh, I'm not interested anymore. Because, but I am basically, John Adams has gone to Congress. He's already started some rivalries between him and Dickinson, and he shares his thoughts on all the men in Congress. Not just Dickinson, but Ben Franklin, and mentioned, and it also talks about historically, like, some of these, like, guys didn't show up, that it was a few months or a year before some of these people showed up at the Congress. And I think a lot of like movies and musicals that talk about these historical events, kind of like I was saying about what Jen Brooks says about Hamilton, condense those events and sped up the timelines of those particular events. Because in reality, these people don't necessarily, they don't show up, they don't come into play until later. But so yes, I guess, and talk about how well spoken and how strongly opinionated Adams was. And I was asking my dad about John Adams because, of course, he's mentioned in Hamilton. Like, there was a bit of a butting heads between Hamilton and Adams. So I kind of was asking him about Adams and what he did. And my dad was saying that John Adams he started the way government is today. Not in the I mean, like, the setup of how it's run and stuff, like how it's, how it came to be the form that it's in. So and he was kind of on his own. Like, everyone kind of worshipped George Washington and admired and respected him. And as the song from King George says, he was no one looms quite as large as George Washington. And he refers to John Adams as the little guy, and how they're going to tear John Adams apart. And good luck, man. Good luck. And he really, I think, and my dad was saying how he's a very underrated president, and it makes me even more interested. And, I hope I don't get restless. I don't like to say the B word, but I just hope I don't decide, oh, I'm into something else now. I'm no longer into this topic. I want to get this book read so I can eventually give it back to my brother-in-law. Although I did see a paperback copy of the book, because there's a section at Books A Million with these kind of biographies, and I almost bought it because this is hardback books are just naturally heavier, because the hardback part, the hard part, this part of it, the hard encasing. And then I know a lot of people get annoyed with the dust jackets, but it is kind of hard to travel with. So, I mean, unfortunately, I can't send it with my mom when she goes on Sunday, because there's no way I'm going to get this done in a few days. So, even if I read nonstop, I don't think I'd get this done. So, yep, so I'm going to read a little bit more of that, along with, I'm going to read more of The Night Country. Well, okay, so I mentioned that I want to see something about Stephen King. So, like I said, my mom is like, oh, I want you to only get one book, because I already have some books coming in the mail. Although I did want to get Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Idiot, but they didn't have that one. And so I was gonna, and then I thought, oh, I'll get, I thought about getting The Last Magician, which is a YA fantasy, and I thought about, getting the third book in the Dark Artifices series, but I attempted to, as you guys know, I did start to read Lady Midnight, but then for some reason it's taking me a while to get into it. I mean, I keep going back and forth and saying maybe I should just get rid of those books and just donate them or something, because I don't know if. But then I think I kind of want to get back into Cassandra Clare, and I actually have a Facebook group. Although I could always pass that on to just my friend Jessica Cofaro and have her manage it. I don't think it's too much. You just remove yourself from the group. But I have this weird, if I've been with something for a long time, then it's kind of hard for me to let it go completely, even though I'm not active in, even if I'm not doing anything with it. But anyway, so she was, I also almost got, like I said earlier, I almost got A Tale of Two Cities in this edition, because I want to reread that one, but I'm also kind of trying to get David Copperfield read and the Pickwick Papers, and then for Victober I want to read Bleak House, and then maybe then I'll buy it, or I will put it on my wish list, and then and just get an edition that's a little bit bigger, because I have a mass market paperback and I still like those. I just have very, mixed feelings about them now, thanks to all people on BookTube. Well, no, I mean, well, yeah, kind of. I'm not trying to say that in a mean way, or like, oh, it's BookTube's fault, because I love BookTube. But they've definitely made me realize that a bigger size book in paperback is a little bit easier to read. But the mass markets are cheaper and easier to travel with. That's my only reason I get mass market paperbacks. And I almost feel guilty, because if I'm going to get rid of all my mass market paperbacks. But so when I ended up deciding was, if I'm going to only get one book, I may as well splurge and get something that's a little more costly, instead of just getting one book that's really cheap. So, which maybe my mom might be like, you should have got the cheaper book. Why did you get the expensive book? But I ended up getting this one, like I said, I mentioned I wanted to say something about Stephen King, and that's I got this book. This is Under the Dome. It was on my Amazon wish list. This is about the town that mysteriously is covered by this force, this like invisible barrier. And I think in the show Haven, they kind of highlight that type of that story. You know, like Haven kind of takes the Colorado Kid story and expands it a little bit. So it's kind of like a Stephen King-esque series. Kind of like, what is that one? The one that just came out. Or it didn't just come out. It's a year, I think it's a year old now. The series that, like last season did something on what is her name? From Misery. I can't remember the character's actual name. Because it's not Misery, it's the name of the character in the guy's book. But, the Kathy Bates plays this character in the movie, but I cannot. Annie Wilkes. That's her name. That's the character name. Annie Wilkes. They kind of introduced her character in the show. I wish I could remember. It's gonna pop in my head any minute now what that show is called. But that one kind of takes a lot of stuff from a lot of the stories that take place in Castle Rock, and kind of puts them in one big story. And I think that's what Haven kind of did. Like, a lot of the elements of Stephen King's novels, like kids with supernatural powers, and combine them into one story and this one particular town of Haven. And expanding also on the Colorado Kid storyline. So, but, and Under the Dome became a series too, I believe. I don't know if it was a miniseries or a series itself. But anyway, and so I don't know much about this, except for the fact that this dome is covered by this, this town is covered by this force, this dome, and then it results in a lot of crazy stuff going on. People like losing their minds and out of desperation. And when I was talking about this with the cashiers, one of them being actually the manager who I would have got, who interviewed me and stuff for the job. Or no, she didn't actually interview me. I didn't get to the interview part. But I had talked to her about getting the job and stuff, and saying I've applied several times for Books A Million, but I'm kind of glad that I never did. I'm grateful that I didn't, because then sometimes I wonder if that would have been not very good for my wallet, or it would have ruined the funness of going to Books A Million, because I'll practically live there. But anyway, so I was talking to them about this book, and they made one of the complaints that a lot of people make about Stephen King is that his books will seem like contemporary horror stories, or stories where they seem kind of normal, but there might be a serial killer or something, or some, but but all of a sudden he'll throw in a supernatural or extraterrestrial kind of situation, and I think a lot of people that aren't fans of the supernatural stuff do not always like that, and there are even people that love supernatural stuff and sci-fi type stuff, and then but they also they don't like the idea of that he'll suddenly throw in something like that into his stories. If the story throughout most of it was like quote unquote normal. Like, I think The Outsider is one of those ones where all of a sudden there's a supernatural explanation that people criticize. But I personally love that. I love when there's like a supernatural thing that happens. And they even asked me if I watched the show, and they're like the only ones actually, because they made a show for Nosferatu as well. They made a show version of that one as well. And the guy I brought it with me to Harris Teeter to read while I was waiting for my dad and to pick me up, and I was reading, and the guy asked me if I had seen the show yet. I was like, no, because I'm trying to get the book done first. The problem with that is it takes me forever to read books like this. So, I mean, look at this is a brick. This is a brick of a book. Nice little floppiness to it. Although I almost bought Red Rum too. I almost bought that one as well. Oh, of course. Of course, the one's like one of his more recent books that just came out. Well, it's not that recent, it's a year now, and some other books have come out since Elevation, but that one's on here, and the book that came after that, The Outsider's, on here too, with a blurb, and then Pet Sematary, which a movie version of it just got made into a movie again. But anyway, so I can't wait to read this, but I got other Stephen King books I need to read. But at least now I can take this off my Amazon wish list because I have it, and I like this. I think I like these bigger, floppier books. I feel more secure in them, and even though they're a bit heavy, because these can be just as heavy as a hardback. You could really hurt someone with this kind of book. You could use these as weapons. If you need to defend yourself against someone, if someone like breaks into your house or something, just literally throw a book at them. I mean, I know you don't want to ruin. No one wants to ruin their books, but if it's your life versus theirs, I say you could use these as weapons. I would say just throw a book at them, like throw it as hard as you can. Of course, there are probably better weapons to defend yourself with, but if that's the only thing that they can, I think they could potentially hurt. And one more thing before I end this update, I got this because I always like getting a bookmark. So this one is really cool because it looks like one of those when you get books out from the library, the little checkout card on inside each book that they stamp the dates in there. And this looks like that. It looks like that kind of design with "She's too fond of books," and it has "turned her brain." And my first thought when I saw this was it reminded me of something Gaston would say. Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Like, it makes me think of the quote, what he says in the animated one. Because in the live action one, it's a different thing he says, but in the animated one, he says, he sees her, he grabs her book that she's reading, and he's like, "How could you read this? There's no pictures." And then she's like, "Some people use their imagination," and she's, like, "Some people just use their imaginations," and he's like, "Belle, you need to get your head out of those books, and get your head out of those books and pay attention to more important things, like me. The whole town's talking about it. It's not right for a woman to read. Soon she starts getting ideas and thinking." I love that quote. That's one of my favorite lines in that movie. Along with, and then in the live action, it's a little different because all he says when he's like, "Oh, have you got a book there?" And he's like, "Yeah, have you read it?" And he's like, "Well, books, But although I think it's more funny, the other line was the animated version of that scene is a little funnier with this whole like, "There's no pictures. How can you read it?" Or you got to get your head out of those books and because everyone's talking about you and how because if you read, then it'll allow you to think more, and we can't have women thinking. But then I realized, I looked at the back, and I realized it's actually a quote by Louisa May Alcott. I don't know if it's in Little Women or something else, but because I ended up DNFing Little Women. It's just too sappy and sentimental for me. So I like the movie. I mean, not the new one. I have not seen the new one yet. But the movie from the 90s, I love that movie. And actually, I just realized something. I found out from I can't remember his channel name, but is it Irish Reader? Or oh no, Gavin. I'm not Irish Reader, but Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. Irish Reader is the one who did all his rereads of like Twilight. He's now rereading 50 Shades, or not rereading. He read Twilight for the first time. He did a vlog on his reading of all the Twilight books, and then he did a vlog on his first time reading 50 Shades Grey. And he recently put out a video on 50 Shades Darker. He did a vlog on that. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm gonna watch it at some point. But that's who Irish Reader is. Kevin's his name. But then the guy I was thinking of is Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. He recently did a middle grade readathon. I can't remember what the actual readathon is called, but I remember he was reading Little Women for that, and he didn't realize, and I didn't either actually, that the book has like Little Women itself only covers their childhood, but then there's another book that covers their adulthood. And it's actually a series. I mean, I had heard that there were other like Joe's Boys and Little Men, but I didn't realize that their lives as children and their lives as adults are in two separate books. So I'm wondering if the copy that I had that I ended up getting rid of covered everything or only covered their childhood. It's a pretty chunky book, so I don't know. I'm kind of curious. But anyway, but yeah, I like this bookmark. I like these because these like wood kind of this kind of wood material. It's like more, it's not gonna fall apart. It's not gonna start like looking like it's peeling. And then of course the tassel. It's not tassels. It's these ribbons, and they won't fall apart like tassels will. I mean, I still like the tassel bookmarks because they can be really pretty, and I like the ones that no, that's not it. Let me find one. I don't know. All of my. I'm trying to find to see if I have one. Is this it? No, that's not one. I'm trying to find. This is close enough. Like these, they kind of have an image on it that's a little shiny, and sometimes it moves. This is not a good one because this doesn't do the movement thing. It doesn't have an image that moves, but I like these, and they have the tassels. Because I just kind of like the images. I should have found one. Oh, here's the good one. Here's one. But see this. Well, it's not. Yeah. It is. See, I don't know if you can tell, but the image kind of moves. It's kind of a 3D image. And I like that. I like a 3D image. So, it's just the tassels could potentially come apart eventually if I'm not careful. That's the downside of those. But what's nice is that these ones, the tassels won't come undone. I mean, I could untie this, but they won't come undone. They won't fall apart on their own. I have to untie them, and it won't be as many pieces to put back together. But anyway, now I have, of course, these ones as well, which their problem with these is that this part moves, this part slides a little bit. I don't like that. But this is a bookmark. This wooden bookmark was one that my mom got from Hawaii. I have two of these. One from when I think we went as a family to Hawaii when I first discovered how much I like pineapple juice, and pineapples. And then they went again, just the two of them with some friends. I think it was like their anniversary or something. Like I think it was my parents' anniversary, so they met up with some friends in Hawaii. So my mom got me a Hawaiian bookmark, and she also got Terry one as well, which I feel bad because it took me forever to give it to her because the first time I saw her after they got back from the trip, I totally forgot to give it to her. But then I was able to give her a year later when she came to visit for the convention. When we went to the convention. But anyway, so yeah, that is what's going on with my reading. And I'm trying to remember when was the last time? I think it was Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday. I think the last video was Sunday. My last video. So I keep thinking for some reason, I keep thinking, did I make one yesterday? But no, I never got around to making one yesterday. But today's another day where I'm probably gonna be stuck inside for the rest of the day because it's raining again, and I think tomorrow's gonna be sunny though. But anyway, so it was. But what's really another cool thing about Hamilton is it's trying to one of the things I think is really cool about Hamilton that I want to say is that it's the way it's telling the story is in a way that relates to the modern audiences, to get people of our time, of our generation, into the historical topic, especially with having such a diverse cast. And I think having stories with diverse cast is especially important even now. It's always important, but especially with what's going on now and what people are having to deal with and how people are feeling right now, I think it's even more important to show how open we are, how we're trying to be more understanding, more open, not be so like stuck in our ways and our beliefs. And it's also kind of getting creative with telling the story, like particularly with including rap, like the stories being told through rap, the songs. But anyway, so yeah, that's another thing. And again, I'm really glad I got to finally watch it. And like I said, I might keep Disney Plus and just pay for it, so my parents will have to pay for it. But I don't know. I don't know what's gonna. I'm still thinking about it. But anyway, if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you have not already. Click the bell notification below if you want to know when I post more videos. And again, as always, feel free to share with me what's going on with your own reading. And I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye.